Welcome to the programme. Our top story today, the US and its European allies are importing vast amounts of nuclear fuel and compounds from Russia. Well, this is all according to an AP news agency report. It is providing Moscow, they say, with hundreds of millions of dollars in badly needed revenue as it wages war on Ukraine. So let's break this down. The report details how these sales, which are legal and unsanctioned, have raised alarms from non-proliferation experts and elected officials. So they say the imports are helping bankroll the development of Moscow's nuclear arsenal and complicating efforts to curtail Russia's war-making abilities. The defense on Russian nuclear products used mostly to fuel civilian reactors leaves the US and its allies open to energy shortages if Putin were to cut off supplies. Now, the challenge is likely to grow more intense as those nations seek to boost productions of emission-free electricity to combat climate change. Now, the West has been reluctant to target Russia's nuclear exports because they play key roles in keeping reactors humming. Now, Russia supplied the US nuclear industry with about 12% of its uranium last year. Europe reported getting about 17% of its uranium in 2022 from Russia. Now, many of the 30 countries generating nuclear energy are importing radioactive materials from Russia's state-owned energy corporation, Rosatom, and its subsidiaries. Now, Rosatom leads the world in uranium enrichment and is ranked third in uranium production and fuel fabrication, according to its 2022 annual report. Now, Ukrainian officials have pleaded with world leaders to sanction Rosatom to cut off one of Moscow's last significant funding streams. Zelensky again pressed Western leaders to target Rosatom after Russian forces captured the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Now, Rosatom is running the partially shut down plant. Now, International Atomic Energy Agency has repeatedly warned a radiation leak at the Russia-occupied facility could be a major disaster. The US nuclear energy industry, which largely outsources its fuel, produces about 20% of US electricity. Now, the value of Russian nuclear fuel and products sent to the US hit $871 million last year. That's up from $689 million in 2021 and $610 million in 2020. Now, Europe is in a bid to largely, because it has 19 Russian-designed reactors in 5 countries that are fully dependent on Russian nuclear fuel. Now, they are in a bind because of that situation. Now, Europe sent nearly $828 million last year. That's how much they spent on Russian nuclear industry products, including fuel elements, nuclear reactors, and machinery. Well, for more on this topic, we've got Andreas Umland joining us, an analyst at the Stockholm Centre for Eastern European Studies at the Swedish Institute for International Affairs, joining us live from Berlin. So great to have you on the programme. This is very complicated and it might come as a surprise to some people, but not so much to others. What do you make of this revelation?
This is, I think, a legacy of basically 30 years of, I would say, misdevelopment of, in general, energy affairs in especially Europe, but also partly North America, where there is still a certain dependence on Russia. We had a large discussion similar to the one currently about nuclear fuel, about gas imports last year in Germany. And Germany was, for the first months after the start of Russia's large-scale invasion, still importing large amounts of Russian gas. And the argument there was by the German government, if we stop doing that, we will crush basically the German economy. And then when the German economy will be crushed and we will have social and economic and perhaps even political problems, we will not be able to help Ukraine in its war against Russia. So this is a very odd situation now repeating itself with the nuclear fuel. As long, I think, as these countries like the US, like, let's say, France, which have these dependencies still are supporting Ukraine. I think Ukrainians sort of look at it with some tolerance, but in general, this is, of course, a very odd situation, and it's strange that this has not changed to a sufficient degree in the last 1.5 years.
Yeah, you're right to say it is rather odd, isn't it? Because actually it's just decades of a system that is hard to change overnight. As you say, it's a difficult situation for, say, Germany, because their country is now in recession. And if they don't provide for themselves and keep their economy healthy, then, as you point out, they could have political problems domestically. How can we resolve this situation then? Because it's not going to happen overnight, is it?
The problem here are simply large lobby groups in these countries. They have money and they have political support. We had this in Germany too last year, but then actually Russia stopped exporting gas through the Nord Stream gas pipelines to Germany. And then in a way the problem was solved. And then actually it turned out that some of the panicking that the lobbying groups were spreading, sort of scenarios that the whole of German industry would suffer from a boycott of Russian gas imports. Then it turned out actually that it was during the last year much less catastrophic. It was actually not at all catastrophic for the German industry. We have some problems now. We are indeed heading towards a recession, but we have basically redirected the gas imports. Something like that, I think, can be also done with nuclear fuel. I think the main issue is here nuclear fuel for the nuclear power plants, but the lobbying is still too strong, as I see it in many Western countries.
Okay, well, thank you so much indeed for your insights. It's a story we're going to be following very closely as the details slowly emerge. Andreas Omlund, analyst at the Stockholm Centre for Eastern European Studies at the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Thank you.